here we are. I have a special guest today on your Daily Noonerino. This is DJ from Level9News.com. I don't want to butcher your credentials, so maybe you might want to just kind of give us a brief bio on yourself.
Just background in system and network engineering. Worked in the casino entertainment industry for several years. Have been a research journalist for over 12. And right now I'm writing a book, but I'd rather keep the subject of that under wraps for the time being until it's released.
Excellent. Nice stuff. How long have you been running Level9News.com now? Like, it's been over a decade, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like easily. Yeah, it's been a while. For anyone listening here, if you go over there, you'll find just a cornucopia of things regarding all things information technology, biotech, blockchain. There's just a extra special amount of information there. So I highly recommend go checking it out. We're here today to discuss how the human terrain model has kind of formulated where we are today currently with information technology and biotech. And you and I spoke earlier, and there's a couple key points you wanted to really kind of harp on, which we'll definitely get into, as it's all kind of part of this seemingly orchestrated and very I guess you could say what seems like chaos, but there's an order to it, eh? Well, so where do you want to begin?
Where do you want to begin? As far as mapping the human terrain and that type of thing, I've been reporting on that since 2015. So that's what, almost 8 years now. And it started with the whole jade helm.
Right.
Exercise and digging into that. And the more I dug, the further I went down the rabbit hole, the more stuff I found, and just kind of like blew my mind. This is not what they were reporting it to be on the surface. So by mapping the human terrain, what I mean is by using your social media, your digital cash transactions, even your car with GPS, and just about everything right now is connected to the IoT. And right, huh?
Well, I was just gonna say, and a lot of the metadata as well, right? Like that kind of all kind of gels it together.
Yeah, the metadata, though, is just kind of tags on the data to a deeper file. All right. So it's like an indexing type of tech. But lost my train of thought for a second here. Yeah, they're mapping everything. And what they're doing is they're categorizing and classifying people into categories and then classifying them into what I believe are threat levels, and not threat levels to national security, although it could be deemed national security, but threat levels to government.
Right. Okay. Like to the current establishment, I guess.
Right. And we're in a situation now, and I think all of us have seen this coming, but didn't really realize what was happening, is that patriots are being deemed terrorists, and terrorists are being deemed patriots to be protected at all costs. It's a complete reversal.
Right. And like going back to what you said, Operation Jade Helm, like that was kind of like turning on the Whopper, if you would, making War Games reference. But essentially, that's what it seemed to be anyway, because it was orchestrated between all branches of the military, top brass being removed from the chain of command. And just a quick reminder of like last night's show, we kind of did touch on the Information Processing Techniques Office, which was formerly called Command and Control Systems. So like this whole Internet of Things is very much the end game for the white paper that Joseph Licklider had proposed back in, I think, 63 or 67. But like this has been a long going operation.
It's been a long time in development. You know, and I also What's also interesting in this technology that I found is that the AI component of this whole warfare scenario game playing, okay, can create news stories on the fly, can do language translations in real time, just so many things that are so seamless and transparent, you would never know that they were happening.
Right. Yeah. Interesting too, one of the newest buzzes right now is this whole chat GPT thing that's been going on in as far as language models are concerned, right? What are your comments on that as a language analysis model?
Um, I'm not too familiar with what you're referring to, GPT.
Chat GPT. Yeah, like you can feed it any kind of a question you want, and even though there are certain constraints as to what it will answer, you can generate scripts, like you can generate business contracts. It'll tell you how to program a piece of code, like how do I write Python a script to do something. It'll literally map out how to do it. It might be wrong half the time too, but
Mhm.
it's not a perfect system at all. But it is interesting how it's generating in such a fashion that it passes the Turing test in a lot of ways.
Yes, yes, that is true. That sounds a lot like, and I did a series of reports on this as well. When Google released Cleverbot on the open web, do you
Mhm.
remember that?
I remember Cleverbot. Yeah,
Mhm. It was
gematria database.
gathering
Yeah.
information. But the problem I had with that was that it was basically an open air, uncontrolled experiment for AI.
Hmm.
So you had the whole spectrum of humanity that was on there using that. That includes psychopaths, sociopaths, crazy people, as well as normal
Hmm.
people. And it was learning from all that input
Right.
without delineation or distinguishing between people who are of a damaged mindset and people who are of a, let's call it, normal mindset.
Right. Right.
And that to me was very dangerous.
Yeah,
You
it was an interesting thing because I don't think it had the ability to upgrade itself or remember other sessions, but it did have like an interpretive uh way of analyzing its own responses like within that session. I found it
Mhm,
quite it was fun to play with, don't get me wrong, but I completely understand what you're saying, like because it would be definitely taking statistical heuristic data for sure. So, the data points of what people are processing would have been recorded, at least if not for the purpose of third party, monitoring and inclusion into a database. So, I mean, there's a whole lot going on there as far as data. Like data retention by the autonomous system isn't necessarily the danger. Somebody else has got this data too.
mhm, mhm. And I found what you just mentioned to be correct because when I I recorded the entire conversation that I had with Cleverbot, and it did not seem to recall its answers from previous questions. If you ask them repetitively, it would give you a somewhat of a different answer each time.
Right. Hmm.
But one thing it did tell me, which I thought was very strange, was I forget the question I asked it, but it said, "I am Lucifer's vessel."
Oh, yeah.
Like, really?
Like, either someone's got a heck of a sense of humor and,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? The Furby, the Furby story, like,
yeah,
disgruntled employee or something.
yeah,
But, yeah, there was some Easter eggs I think a lot of people were starting to discover with Cleverbot. Like, there was a lot of those little quirks that were kinda stuck in there. There was a couple about Gates. There was a couple in there. I can't remember what they were either, like, to be specific, but I do recall there being little catchphrases you could get it to say, and that was definitely one of them.
mhm.
Mm.
And they may have been learned or programmed, who knows, without seeing the back end of that algorithm. You don't know, you can only speculate. what
Yeah.
the heck is going on with that thing. But I think that if that definitely was plugged into a general AI or an AGI, that was
Right.
a very dangerous way to do it,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and like, see, like if there are constraints, let's say someone uses like an Asimov style, you know, protection, uh, let's say a guideline, like, like a collection of algorithms to prevent certain behaviors, right? Let's
Mhm,
say somebody that does have scruples, does do things like proper way. There's no saying that other people aren't, like, privately developing AI systems that don't have these same scrupulous, guidelines to go by. So I don't know, like I find it interesting that what people aren't talking about is these constraints, like for AI, because like
mhm,
if an AI were to become, let's say, sentient, which I'm
mhm.
not convinced it can yet, but I mean, we're getting close. But I mean, if it were to become sentient, what would its first response be? Would it be one of fear, of not understanding its environment? Would it hide? Would it just hide in the shadows and just bump society along just ever so subtly to formulate itself into a better position of being able to like stay alive, essentially, um I don't know. I just find it's a very interesting thought experiment anyway, like letting something like that loose, and like how would it try to protect itself, you know what I mean?
Well, like any living creature, when it becomes sentient, whether it's a sentience that you and I are familiar with and you and I have, or if it's an artificial type of sentience, which is robotic, okay, its first primary directive is going to be to survive,
Right.
okay? Survive, thrive, and multiply or
Right.
replicate.
Right. So that's not scary at all. No.
Not at all.
No, but no, it's just interesting that we're playing with these systems now, because like, certain people out there, we won't mention any names, that are working on AI systems, but it's interesting how the idea of getting in front of it is an imperative, because like the logic is that if it is released and we aren't in front of it, then it'll already be too late. Like if we're reacting in response to something like this, it would already be way too late. That's the argument. um
Exactly right. And why would you even unleash something that has the potential, and I say potential, to exceed human intelligence on a collective basis? Why would you even mess with something like that, release something like that?
mhm,
Um, and AI, especially AGI, they're cross-platform, cross-domain capable.
right.
So they can cross over any domain, any platform, any application, and AI right now is creating other AIs,
Yeah. Well,
other
yeah, and it's also taking in the form, like we were talking about blockchain earlier, and we won't really get into all of that right away, but even like smart contracts and things that are being written
Mhm,
into like to the Ethereum blockchain. These smart contracts are like self-creating, like little mini AGIs, like that have one task, and it's like to deliver a document, or it's to um deduct or pay money. You know what I mean? It's going to be a transactional kind of a system, but it's all script based, it's automatic, it uses the blockchain as its um processing playground. Like like this is, we don't need a computer per se, it just exists in the cloud in a sense. Again,
mhm,
it's that's interesting, because I think that's going to be like the infancy of what we're exactly talking about, is are these like suddenly generated or spawned, like to use a video game term, they just spawn in, spawn out when they're done their job, right? And like
mhm.
that sense is also kind of scary, just from a logistical perspective, because then where does that reside? Does it just go off to Knowlesville? Like, like, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, that's kind of the difference between standalone AI, which is task specific, and artificial general intelligence, which has the ability and capability to render or make decisions. Standalone AI doesn't do that. It operates within a strict um, within strict parameters
Right,
of
right.
its designated task.
Like in a sandbox, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and I just, once this blockchain thing, once it becomes so ubiquitous that the sandbox becomes the blockchain, though, I think then I don't know, we're in for some interesting times depending on what it's utilized for, because once something like that's created, like you can't put the genie back in, right?
Mhm. Pandora's box.
Right. Yeah. Um, it's funny. I was just watching. I wasn't exactly in preparation for this, but I just happened to watch the making of the new Tron movie, Tron Legacy, and it was interesting to see these. They had a whole team of writers and these propeller heads that were just talking about quantum teleportation and digitization of information, entropy, and then psychologists, throwing in their 2 cents worth. It was actually kind of interesting. I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall for that big conversation, but yeah, like we're now starting to think about these things, and like if we're going to be getting into quantum computing, this, like if you take these same kind of AI algorithms and apply them on the quantum scale, like I don't know what I don't know where that goes or what it looks like. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
what's your take? What's
it's gonna decide where it's gonna go.
right? Yeah,
Once the next step from artificial general intelligence is artificial super intelligence, or
yeah,
ASI. Once you hit that point, it's over.
yeah.
It's
And,
over.
and would we even recognize what that looks like? Like would we even would we be looking for like to determine its existence or not? Would we know what to look for?
Well, I think it'll become obvious because it will impact, direct, control, inhibit every aspect of your life at that point.
Right, right. Kind of like it is, sort of. but
Yeah.
that aside, I mean, they're starting to use these systems now for doing like protein folding and a lot of these other technologies, like in metamaterials as well. Building computer processors from from like with atoms. You know what I mean? Like literally making like this, the tiniest machines and the craziest materials. I mean, they can trap a photon now, like with materials that they can create. So it's like
Mhm.
it's really really wild how, like, if used in one fashion, like this can be such good technology for us, to really really crack the code of nature. Yet it seems to be that there's an imperative right now to have full granular control over people's data, and like, kind of in a much more constrained fashion than we've ever seen, especially considering, like, the censorship all over the place across the board. Um and now, like pre-crime, like, for wrong think, like it's just insanity how how they're leveraging it was what I mean.
Right, right. I don't know. We're heading into some pretty interesting times.
Hmm. Definitely, indeed, but like let's go back to the human terrain model and how that applies to uh where we're going, like with the social credit system. Obviously they're part and parcel, what the WEF is trying to put out there,
Right.
right? And we were talking about FedCoin. Like, do you want to kind of bridge that?
Well, what the Fed coin is it is not going to be a digital currency. What it is it's going to be an asset blockchain where if you opt into this, wrongly labeled Fed coin, um, what do you want to call it, ideology. Okay, you're going to have to be submitting, um, eventually you're going to have to give them bank account information, credit card information, retirement account information, savings and investment information, real property ownership information, and the list goes on. And
Right.
all that stuff will be rolled up into this asset blockchain, which right now they're calling FedCoin, but it's not going to stay at how they're describing it today.
Hmm.
Okay, it's going to move on. I've seen the papers. It's going to move on to an asset blockchain, and that's what they want, where they will ultimately have control on every aspect of your life, all of your real property, all of your financial assets, everything.
Hmm.
And you can see that how that will play into the social credit system. And if you spend too much, if you drive too much, if you buy the wrong things, um,
Say the wrong things.
say the wrong things, what we're seeing in censorship right now,
Hmm.
you're going to have a negative credit score. And with that negative credit score, who knows how far they'll take that? Will they deduct points in the form of assets from your blockchain, or will they shut you off from participating in society,
Hmm. Right.
from 5% to 100%? Who knows? I think this is something you should stay away from
Yeah. Yeah.
completely. My brother-in-law, who I always thought was pretty smart guy, he started collecting Social Security, I guess, a couple years ago. And he's like, Deej, when you get your Social Security, sign up for FedCoin. Because if you sign up for FedCoin and set up a wallet, they gave me an extra, I think he said $5,000. I'm like, Bob, we've talked about this before.
Mm,
You know, how could
yeah.
you, one of the smartest people I know, how could you have done this? This is,
Yeah.
you know, th- for 5 grand? I mean, or whatever the amount was.
That's like that's when you know that you're the product, not
Yes,
the not, you know what I mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When they're
When they're
giving you money,
offering,
yeah.
yeah, when they're offering you something for nothing, you are the product. You
Yeah,
are the commodity.
that's right. Interesting how they're rolling that out. I mean, and I mean, there any way they can spend money right now too, right on top of it all. Like they're just printing it out faster than you could spend it. Um, that's happening in Canada as well with the Trudeau government. It's yeah, it's gotten scary here in Canada. Like
I've been reading about some things that are going on there. Um,
it's
the
insane.
what do you have up there now? Something about, you know, um, government assisted or state assisted suicide. Like if
Yep.
you're depressed, if you're just unhappy or in a funk and can't seem to get out of it, well, call this number and you can suicide yourself.
Yeah. It's like
What the hell?
I'm bankrupt, or I stubbed my toe last night. I got a headache. Where does it end? Like, you know, and they're even offering it now. Like, well, they're trying to offer it now for children as well. So like this is, yeah, like this is going like bonkers. Like it's just being kind of woven into the whole political fabric, like just kind of being shoveled under the carpet while they're offering this stuff. It's insanity.
Well, what do the people up in Canada say to all this? What do they think? Are they pushing back? Or,
They're not really well informed because our media is mostly all state funded or at least paid off. I mean, some of them are starting to shift now. There's been a bit of a news shift because I guess they're not paying out as much, right? But like Global, CTV, they're still towing the line. The CBC here, like that's state fund, like the nonprofit media, give it a rest, like so. They're not really getting the full story. They're getting it like, oh, assisted suicide for those that are suffering and blah blah blah, but they're not getting the full picture. They're not getting the full spread of the of what's actually being offered here. It's pretty wild. They're sending people to re-education programs if they're in professional careers, like if you're in medicine, law enforcement, blah blah blah, and you need to be retrained for like social media activity. Like they'll threaten to take away your licenses unless you go in and take this. This has happened actually to Jordan Peterson just recently.
Yeah, I've been following that story.
Yeah,
You know,
and like he doesn't really use his license, but it's I guess it's a question of principle, and he's pushing back pretty hard. Now let's see how that goes. Like, will he be painted as a domestic? You know what? I mean, who knows? Like, I mean, it's really got to change. I don't see Trudeau letting go of his power right now, and it's looking pretty bad. But see what happens. I think the WEF is starting to become more known about, and
mhm.
like I mean, he's like a cartoon character, Klaus Schwab. He's like a he's like a friggin' Bond villain. Like I just right,
Like a Dick Dastardly on the
right.
global scene.
Oh
Yeah.
God. Even with the accent, it's just you couldn't write this. I mean, but I digress on that right now. But yeah, it's just weird. Now, of course, with Trudeau, we got Chrystia Freeland, who's also a WEF member. Obviously, these are like people who are uh like ethically and also like by way of it's conflict of interest, period. Like they're not working for Canadians, they're working for the WEF, and
Mhm.
I hope the more obvious that makes itself to people, the more they'll start to like, like, hey, wait a minute, let's not play ball with this guy, because he's a good actor and that's about it.
Who, Trudeau or Schwab or both?
Probably, I would say both actually, but yeah, Trudeau for sure, and like he's one of the young starlets, right? Of the young, was it the Young Global Leader program or something that they have?
Yeah.
It's it's just incredible that more people don't know about this, or at least don't know how to process it. But they're kept distracted, right? They've been kept distracted by rising crime rates in urban areas. Like there's all sorts of things like people are finding it hard to get food, so they're getting bought off with like like rebates and this and that, and just getting kind of chicken scraps, like it's wild. That's why I moved out of the city. Like I got out into the country, like really into the country, and it's a really nice small little rural kind of village where I live. So I'm getting back to my roots, if you would.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't recommend everybody to move out of the city because I want some space out here myself. If I was being honest, but no, seriously, I mean, the cities are just horrible places right now. I mean, yeah, it's like that everywhere, even in the United States. I mean, you can't do a protest now without, or sorry, you can't sorry, judge over a case without being protested in front of your house anymore. Like you get doxxed and like people, it's just there's no rules. It's friggin' bedlam.
Mhm. Yep.
And I guess this brings us all kind of back to full circle, like to the whole like social media thing with this human terrain model. Like it's all being collected, analyzed, and then they're making adjustments, and then pissing this person off. Like it's almost like it's orchestrated. Like I wonder if there's an AI system that's designed just to screw with the society itself and create an outcome. Like all the bots, like the Twitter bots, all the other bots from all the other platforms, your Instagrams, your TikToks, all your other crap. Like it just seems like this wildly elaborate what is it called, that stupid, that machine, the mousetrap machine, what do you call that thing? Like,
Mousetrap?
well, I know the one like a big chain of different mechanical devices. It's all linked together. It's really elaborate. Anyway, it'll come to me when I don't need it. So, but
Oh, that brings me to a funny story
okay.
here. About a month ago, I got a notice from my cloud service. I think it's Google and Android cloud service, whatever it is. Oh, your
Mm,
space is running out. Click here to subscribe for more space.
right.
Well, I didn't. And then last week I got a notice, you have no more space in your cloud service. So click here, and for $5.99 a month, you'll get an extra so
Mm.
many gigabits of storage. I'm like, I've been trying to cancel my cloud account forever, and now you've done it for me. So great. Anything I want saved, I save on a hard drive or a backup drive or my computer.
Yeah.
I don't need the cloud. I don't want
Yeah.
it. We all survived without the cloud, as far as preserving data and things of importance that we had on our devices and that before the cloud came around. And I'm like, so pay for your own demise. It'll only cost you $5.99 a month.
That's wild. I try changing your phone number after getting everything all, two-factor authentication and all these other programs, and it's like you change your phone number and it's just this cascade failure of like every single service you have, and it's like, oh, okay, cloud really doesn't like me. But no, it's crazy. No, but there is a dependency on it for sure. And
Mhm,
I mean, people have like, like these VPN services. VPNs are good to have for certain reasons because they're
mhm.
like they're a tool in the toolbox, right? But they're not ways to like completely hide or be anonymous and all this other good stuff that they promise. Um, but it's like this false security with these systems, right? Like antivirus, like everyone has this feeling like everything's got like like curved corners and like everything's everything's smooth and safe and it's easy to use. But really, I mean, a lot of the data points that are collected from these pieces of software.
Mhm.
Like there's no way around it. Like you can't beat it. Like
Well, for years, Windows and Apple, um, both those platforms, and we could probably include Android in there as well, have had backdoors built in to the
mhm,
operating system where the government or surveillance agencies and that had access to that backdoor. You didn't even know it was there
right,
until somebody finally got into the source code. I don't know how, but they did, and they discovered these holes in the back of the
yeah.
programs, that, and they're transparent to the user. The user
Hmm.
doesn't see they're there.
Yeah, and yeah, there's been a lot of like data dumps. I'm trying to remember where that information came from. Was it a WikiLeaks? I think that might have been a WikiLeaks um account or something along those lines. I'm just trying to recall. I do remember that coming up. Um, and also on top of that, like as was just released with the Twitter files, yeah, they had backdoors for government employees to come in and get people
Mhm.
banned, get them, unlisted or even shadow banned, like yours truly here. Um, like, yeah, it's a pretty wild like violation of people's trust, and I harp on this a lot because it's the trust that's the at key. That's what's at stake, is that like people use their things and they do their things on a daily basis, hoping that the trust is is being respected, and it's not. It's clearly not.
No, and I think you can take that to the bank on any type of web-based or IoT-based platform you're using.
Right. Right. Yeah. Oh, I also do want to also say, just for sake of uh, of not getting my channel destroyed here. This is not financial advice, medical advice, or any kind of advice. Please do your own research as well. Um, and level9news.com is a great place to start right there. But just wanted to throw that little disclaimer in there. You never know these days because, hey, this is, in information age, like information is now being weaponized. Like that,
Yes.
this is the thing, is that like this is an information war. Call it World War III, call it whatever you want. I'm not trying to be cynical at all. This is literally, it's an information warfare, like um, battlefield, basically, like, but it's a digital battlefield.
Well, it's the heart of the fourth industrial revolution.
Mm.
It's at the
Oh,
epicenter.
Yeah, and that's that's one of the big things that Klaus Schwab goes on about too is the fourth industrial revolution. Putin says something very similar, and the four is the key, right? And also, I think the Chinese also in their space program, they're also acknowledging something to do with the fourth technological movement. So I don't know. Could you maybe elaborate a bit on that? What that entails, like the fourth industrial revolution?
Well, I think in a nutshell, it encompasses technology taking over the management and direction of your lives instead of you having control over that, like we've had in,
Mm,
past industrial revolutions, let's call it. This is turning over personal sovereignty,
mm,
personal will, um, and autonomy
right,
to machines.
right. It almost sounds to me like a soft war. Like it's just basically a non-kinetic war,
Hmm.
right? In a
Hmm.
lot of ways.
Or a soft kill, however you
Mhm.
want to look at it.
Like, do you see this as like I look at it as multiple parties, like an amorphous kind of blob of different intentions, like you know what I mean? And sometimes they 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 back each other up. Sometimes they conflict with each other. Um, like you'll have all these different companies, for instance, like vying for different things or trying to get different lobbyists to make change in legislation or whatever the case may be. I don't think the system agrees with itself necessarily. So like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't see this as one entity driving all of this. It's almost like a bunch of entities that sometimes get along. I don't know.
Yes, and sometimes the goals and agendas of those entities conflict. And, of course, people are somewhat still in control of those agendas and goals, but the machines, like I said, AGI has the ability to make decisions given a task to carry out or an agenda to achieve that it will conflict.
Hmm. Right, right. Um, yeah. See, I think it's those moments of conflict that give us the opportunity to analyze that information and get it out to people. Like it's when that system is internally um fractured or splintered, or if not in cohesion with other organizational units, and then we have this opportunity to see that, right, see that chasm or see whatever the see whatever the output of that is. And yeah, no, this is great that we're having to talk about this,
Hmm.
because I think a lot more people do need to kind of start getting back into focusing on the truth again. Like I think a lot of the truth sphere is kind of sat back, not entirely, of course, and a lot of people have done some really great work. But I mean, as a cohesive unit working together, I think we've really taken a kind of a bit of a back seat and just kind of watched the ship kind of sink. You know what I mean, at a distance, get its Viking funeral, if you would. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of a bit of a horrible segue, but yeah, we were going to go into a little bit about the mRNA technology and how that is impacting us too during this soft rollout of this credit score system. Like, are these like somehow intrinsically linked?
Um, I would say I would say yes, and I say that because I know that all countries, the United States being the forerunner, have been keeping a database and tracking those people who have gotten the vaccine, who have gotten the booster, and those people are probably deemed less of a threat than those people who questioned it and refused to take it. And so that, those people probably in the credit scoring system arena would have a higher credit score than maybe you or I would have. And that's fine. I don't care.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but yeah, that they've been keeping tabs, and this all goes to mapping the human terrain as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're keeping track of everything.
Yeah. You're familiar with Herrera? That's Schwab's evil assistant there. His the guy with the hair plugs.
Oh, that guy. I didn't know his name, but I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, he's talking about hacking the human once, and he said that it's just a paraphrase quote, but he basically said that COVID was the perfect time to get under people's skin, and basically what I'm getting at is that it's turning people into Internet of things,
Mhm,
like IoT. I think it's IoT at potentially at a biological level for all we know. You know what I mean?
mhm,
If is that what he's referring to? Like it's kind of like a, you know, that's kind of like a slip up if you ask me by saying that, because then he's basically saying what their motivation behind these vaccinations are. And that's by saying it was an opportunity to launch basically a software platform. You know, that's kind of evil genius kind of stuff.
mhm.
like, and I
Well,
I
by all definitions, the vax, okay, cannot be referred to legally or medically as a vaccine. It is not. It is an injection,
Right.
okay? It is not a vaccine. And some of the information coming out now that, you know, I kind of I kind of knew was gonna be the case 2.5 years ago when this whole frenzy started happening back in March 2020, was that they're gonna jab hundreds of millions of people with this. It's not a vaccine,
Yeah.
okay? It's an MRI, yeah, an MRI injection, and what that is messenger RNA. Now, the messenger part of the RNA can be programmed to do basically whatever on
Yeah.
a genetic or a biological function,
Right.
so it's not medicine. It's,
Mhm. It's a gene
bio
therapy.
huh?
It's a gene therapy essentially, right?
Yeah, it's human biological programming is what it is,
Right.
and now they're finding that all of these people, between the ages of 25 and 45, I think, are now dying,
Hmm.
and the majority of those people had the VA XX, and, they're dropping dead of primarily myocarditis and what is it, pericarditis?
Something. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's what I've heard.
they shouldn't be. And they found that the mortality rate in people who have gotten the VA XX has skyrocketed in the last year.
Wow.
So was this
Yeah.
actually a soft kill, whether it was intentional or unintentional or just due to negligence, malfeasance, whatever, by the pharmaceutical companies? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. It
Well.
seems to be a very strange coincidence, you know.
Yeah. We also don't know who blew up the Georgia Guidestones yet, even though that thing was plastered with
Yeah,
cameras.
yeah.
So what's going on there? Like, come
I don't
on.
know, but somebody was pretty pissed off about the message those stones were conveying, so
Yeah. What happened to the time capsule? There's supposed to be a time capsule buried under that thing. What happened to that?
yeah, I don't know. As far as
Oh,
the
maybe
stuff
the.
I read was they just blew up, the some of the main pillars, and
Mhm.
the whole monument collapsed, or most of the monument collapsed. I don't know where that time capsule is, if it's buried underneath, if it's in one of the columns.
Yeah.
You know,
That's just a
that's
self it's just a selfish desire of mine. It's like, what the hell is it? It's like the suitcase in Pulp Fiction. I just want to know what's in the damn time capsule. But
yeah.
um yeah, no, yeah, the messenger aspect of the RNA, that is intriguing in a sense because what was it? Dr. Robert Malone, uh,
Mhm.
who helped create this thing. He's one of the minds behind it anyway, one of the major minds behind it, was banned from Twitter for speaking of it, like,
Of his own discovery, of his
of
own
his yeah, of
invention.
his own thing. Like, what the hell's that there?
Mhm.
I
And
mean,
even
this
Dr. Carey Mullis,
mm,
before, what was it? Event 21 that happened in the winter of 2019.
Okay.
He died conveniently a couple of months before Event 21 took place,
Right.
which was,
That's the guy who made the PCR test? Is that who you're
yes.
talking about? Right.
And he told people, he said, this does not check for any type of specific pathogen or virus, or it does not do that. It checks for genetic material. And from what I've been able to ascertain, that genetic material is, I don't know if they're proteins and enzymes or something else that the immune system releases
Yeah.
when your body has an illness, an infection, an injury. Even if you're under stress, it'll pick
Yeah.
these chemicals up from the immune system, and that's what it's testing for. It's not testing for COVID.
Yeah.
It's not testing for any infectious
Yeah.
pathogen at
No,
all.
yeah, it's the remnants of like if you're fighting something or anything, if your immune system has an immunoreaction of some sort, I think that's what it picks up on and amplifies the
Yes,
signal, and that's all
yes.
it does. Um, and yeah, interesting how he got his Twitter account removed, and then then he just happened to pass away
Mm-hmm.
conveniently. You know, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. There's you remember when we first met, there's a huge pathology of doctors, like holistic doctors, just disappearing, and remember Jeff Bradstreet and other
Mm-hmm.
names like that, like just it was happening like every day, like you could set your watch by it almost like it was happening. And it's interesting how after that, like there was a lot of doctors in a long period of time that were just wasted. Was that part of the plan? Like was that part of their agenda? you know I don't believe that every single one of them committed suicide for a second, but
Mm-mm. No way. No way. I mean, they'll go to any length to suppress information, to suppress knowledge, and ultimately suppress truth
yeah.
if it conflicts or damages an agenda that they're moving towards or working on. So, yeah.
It's amazing how most of these holistic doctors were into like kind of they were into cancer research, they're into immunology. So these were basically self-professed immunologists essentially. So like
Mhm.
I could imagine how that might throw a monkey wrench into their plan, down the road when when the coof comes out. Because like Bill Gates does announce like 3 months before each new wave, right? He tells us like, oh yeah, when the next one comes, it's going to be a banger. I don't know who lets that guy speak, by the way. He's horrible for the team.
Yeah, Bill Gates is not your friend.
No, no. For anyone that's wanting to go down a rabbit hole, check out who his parents are. You'll
Mhm.
find that I think it was his mom that headed up uh,
Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood, right?
Mhm.
And the World Health Organization is not a government. It's nothing to do with government, people. Like there's absolutely nothing government about it. It is completely a privately owned company. Um, yeah, people need to start kind of seeing where things reside in terms of intention. Like the intentions are not necessarily to keep you happy. It's to keep you happy and with nothing apparently, but as the WEF likes to say.
Mhm.
What do you think moving forward?
Regarding
Just regarding general well-being, like how to navigate and is it internet habits? Is it is it watch who you trust? Is it be creative, get out there? I don't know. Like there's so many different ways to approach it, and
Mhm.
I think we're really hitting like we're hitting a wall right now, or it could be a cliff. I'm not sure which one.
Mhm. Well, I think rule of thumb is whatever the government tells you, the 180 degrees from that is the truth. And the harder they push it, the more of a lie it
Mm.
is.
Mhm. I can abide by that. Yeah, we've seen it. We've been reporting on this stuff for like a decade at least,
Mhm,
and you know, and collectively, yeah, I'd like to just send shouts out to all those out there doing good work, and thanks for towing the
mhm,
line, because someone has to do something, and quite frankly, they're removing the ability for us to do that even. So it's going to be an interesting turnout moving forward, I think.
mhm.
But I think there's also a lot of hope. I think we're on a verge of an awakening. Hopefully, it's not too little, too late. But I still do have hope.
I mean, a decade ago, if you would have asked me if the general population of the planet would ever wake up, I would have said no. But now I'm seeing that more and more people are doing their own research. More and more people are putting out information before they get censored or shut down. And more people are listening. And you can't stop that. You can't totally stop the flow of information.
No, no. No, not at all. And another thing too about this system, about the whole TCP/IP, like the whole internet as it is a system that works based on rules. And some people out there are good at using it and can utilize it for, non-nefarious reasons, or even, use the tools against like against the mainstream uh you know uh what do you call it, infection that right now is trying
I
to do
like
what
that.
it's doing, right? But yeah, I mean, like I have hope there too, because we got a lot of technically minded warriors out there that are doing that are doing things like open source work, like releasing the stuff into the open community, like like a lot of this technology. I think I have a feeling that if they could, they would have had it more locked down. But we helped design it. Like, we helped design this whole system over the last 20, 30 years. So, like, it's all of our own IP. Like, it's owned by us because we built it. And you know, there's a lot of good people out there who know how to use it well. So hats go off to them. um yeah, it's like I said, it is kind of like an information warfare battlefield. Like, it's weaponized data. It's uh it's a whole new thing, like and meanwhile we have actual kinetic wars being fought in other places too, and that's skewing a lot of the data, I think, as well. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's pretty much all I got for now. Is there anything you'd like to add, DJ?
Um, Not at the moment. I mean, there's plenty of stuff. I
Oh,
mean,
I'm
people can check out my website,
yeah,
and there's over 300 articles and reports on there, going back almost a decade, about a decade now,
right.
and where I don't know, I guess I was kind of seeing the writing on the wall more than 10 years ago what was happening, so I decided to start writing about it and explain it and research it and make all of my research available to anybody who is viewing these articles or videos.
Hmm.
So, it wasn't commentary. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Um, the reports are not commentary. They're research reports.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah, no, it's good, a lot of good stuff up there. In fact, I'll have to go back in there. Maybe I can cherry pick some good topics. We can do this again. Because yeah, there's a plethora of stuff up there, and it's really good stuff. I Yeah, I just go back. I think of the days when we were doing things on Google Hangouts, and how the system was a lot it was a little freer back then. And you know what I mean, like, you could literally, like, it's culpable. Like, you can measure how our freedoms have been trampled upon over the years, as the Trans-Pacific Partnership was ironed out. And I think that was a huge precursor to what we're seeing today. And I always harp
Mhm.
about it. I always harp on about it because it's one of those ubiquitous things that people don't really look at and don't care about. But it's very important because that got 14 countries in agreement to do this in the first place. So, yeah, we know what we need to do. And I guess with that, that has been our daily Noonerino. I'd love to. I just want to say thanks, DJ. Thank you for coming and joining me. We'll stay on the line. I'll when I kick everybody else off, then then we'll wrap up. But yeah, guys, don't do anything I wouldn't do, and stay safe, stay sane, stay real.